Hello and welcome to a new video, everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing some wonderful books to read over the winter and Christmas period. I always love to get organized at this time of year and start to think about my festive and wintry reading, and I know a lot of you like to get organized too. So I thought in today's video I would share some books that are new to me that I'm really looking forward to adding to my winter and Christmas reading lists. And I'm also going to share some firm favorites from the past with you too. So I hope you'll enjoy getting cozy, maybe get yourself a hot chocolate or a cup of tea. I've got a cup of tea here myself, and hearing about some lovely wintry and festive books. I also have to say that the November issue of Seasons of Story has just gone live on my website, so I'll link to that in the description box down below, because there are some really lovely pieces from our contributors in this month's Seasons of Story issue. There's a lovely piece by Chloe Ashby, our art critic, who's looking at a sort of late autumn artwork and a story of sisterly affection behind it. And then our garden contributor, Letitia McClue, is talking about what she's doing in the garden in November. So do go and have a read. My mum and I have also contributed articles as well, and there's just a lot of goodness coming up for the winter in Seasons of Story. I can't wait to share the December issue with you as well later, but if you want some seasonal inspiration, then definitely go there too. But I hope you'll enjoy these book recommendations from me as well to inspire you over the next few weeks. Next weekend, I'm doing a big Christmas book gift guide, so I'll be sharing lots of amazing books that I think will make wonderful Christmas presents. That's coming next weekend, but I thought this weekend I would share some lovely books that you can read over the upcoming weeks and months. So we'd better get started. So let's start with the first book, which is Stories for Winter and Nights by the Fire. I love how cozy that sounds, and I am exactly in the mood for this kind of short story collection. So I got this in the post just earlier this week, and I can't wait to dive in. I always really enjoy the books that are done by the British Library Women Writers series. I got this one last year, Stories for Christmas, and I love that they've done a kind of companion volume this winter. This one obviously has more of a focus on wintry stories, and this one has a focus on festive Christmassy stories, which I love. I think these will be so nice to read together this year. I'm definitely going to return to a few of the stories in this one, which I particularly enjoyed when I read last year, and I'm excited to read this one for the first time. I have actually just started it. The first story is by Edith Wharton, and I'm already enjoying that one. There are lots of great female writers featured in this collection. So there are stories by Shirley Jackson, Catherine Mansfield, Angela Carter, Elizabeth Taylor, Elizabeth Berridge, and Sylvia Townsend Warner, and many others. So yes, I'm definitely looking forward to curling up in an armchair, maybe by the kitchen fireplace even, and reading this one. And then I ordered this book too, Mistletoe Malice by Kathleen Farrell. And I'm really looking forward to this. I'm not quite sure how cozy this one will be, as it sounds like there are some tricky family dynamics happening in this story. And there's apparently an exploding Christmas tree as well. So it might be a bit of a disastrous Christmas in some way, but I'm really looking forward to getting to this. I always enjoy the books that Faber republished as kind of forgotten classics. They've done quite a few of those lately. So I'm definitely intrigued by this one, and I'm looking forward to getting to it. It says, the fire is on, sherry poured, claws are being sharpened. In a seaside cottage perched on a cliff, one family reunites for Christmas. While snow falls, a widowed matriarch tyrannically rules over her unruly brood. Her spinster niece tends to her whims, but dreams of eloping. And as more guests arrive, each bringing their secret truths and dreams, the Christmas tree explodes, a brawl erupts, an escape occurs, and their midwinter madness climaxes. Out of print for 70 years, Mistletoe Malice is a glorious lost gem, a darkly witty portrait of a dysfunctional post-war English family's festivities for fans of Barbara Pym, Stella Gibbons, Nancy Mitford, and Elizabeth Taylor. Well, tick, 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 tick for me. I love all of those writers so much. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. And it sounds like it should be a fun read, hopefully. So looking forward to that. Then I've got another Faber book lined up, which is The Long Shadow by Celia Fremlin. A lot of you may remember how much I enjoyed Uncle Paul by Celia Fremlin. I read that over the summer. It was an excellent summertime book to read. And this one looks like a perfect book for winter. It's set over Christmas. Again, I think it's a bit of a domestic noir, sort of slightly thrillerish type book like Uncle Paul was. Not too scary, I don't think, more of a psychological thriller, but I'm really looking forward to it. And it sounds like an intriguing take on the Christmas story. It says, jolted from sleep by the ringing of the telephone, Imogen stumbles through the dark, empty house to answer it. At first, she can't quite understand the man on the other end of the line. Surely he can't honestly be accusing her of killing her husband, who died in a car crash barely 2 months ago. As the nights draw in, Imogen finds her home filling up with unexpected Christmas guests, who may be looking for more than simple festive cheer. Yes, I've been saving this one to read in the winter times, and I really can't wait to get to it. And then I was lucky enough to receive this book from the British Library. It's part of their crime classic series, Who Killed Father Christmas and Other Seasonal Mysteries, edited by Martin Edwards. They've done quite a few of these anthologies over the past few years, bringing together Christmassy crime classics in short story form, and I'm really looking forward to this latest one. It's always a treat to me actually to turn to the British Library crime classics at Christmas time and read one of their short story anthologies. It's such a busy time of year that I do enjoy having some good short story anthologies on my bedside table, and I still want them to be festive. So this is perfect for me. It's just the type of book that I love to read at this time of year, and I'm excited to get to their latest one. That will be a real treat. So really happy to have got that. And then speaking of short story anthologies, I've got a couple more here. This one is new out. The Winter Spirits, Ghostly Tales for Frosty Nights. I must admit, I do like reading some classic ghost story anthologies in November especially. I think this month really lends itself to reading that type of book. So I've read quite a few of the real classics that had a lot of Dickens, for instance, and Elizabeth Gaskell and some E. Nesbit and just M.R. James, a lot of the real sort of classic ghost stories. And I have enjoyed those. These are all by modern writers. It's actually a companion volume to this book, The Haunting Season, that I think came out last year. It was either last year or the year before. And I'm excited that they've done another one with a real focus on frosty nights and winter tales. So I think this should be really good as well. And yes, I'm excited to have this book to dive into as well. And then in the last Comfort Book Club video, I spoke about how much I actually do want to try Sophie Hannah's books that she's written in the style of Agatha Christie and that feature Hercule Poirot. I haven't read any of these books by Sophie Hannah before, but I'm actually reading a ghost story by her at the moment called The Orphan Choir, and I'm really enjoying it. And it made me want to read more of her writing, and I'm such a big Agatha Christie fan that I thought I'd really like to try some of her books in the style of Christie. And this is her brand new one, Hercule Poirot's Silent Night. And this is obviously a very festive read. I think Hercule Poirot finds himself at an English country house. It says it's 19th December 1931. Hercule Poirot and Inspector Edward Catchpole are called to investigate the murder of a man in the apparent safe haven of a Norfolk hospital ward. Catchpole's mother, the irrepressible Cynthia, insists that he and Poirot stay with her in a crumbling mansion by the coast, so that they can all be together for the festive period while Poirot solves the case. And what I really like the look of too, by the way, how lovely are the end papers? I thought I'd show you those. But what I do like is that this is one of those books you could almost read in real time, because it starts on the 19th of December and then it goes through the 20th, 21st, 27th, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and it ends on the 25th, Christmas Day. And I just really like that. So I think this will be a book that I'll save to read for later in December. I'm not sure if I'll actually be able to read it day by day, but I think I'll definitely at least read this in December. And I'm really looking forward to it. I hope I like it. Let me know if you've tried any of Sophie Hannah's Poirot books. I'm obviously not starting with the first one, but I didn't really feel that these were books I'd have to read in order. And I just love the fact that this is a Christmas mystery, because I do especially love a good kind of cozy crime at Christmas. A Christie for Christmas. And this is the modern equivalent of that, I guess. So I'm looking forward to this one. And then a few books that I wanted to tell you about that aren't new to me. These are some favorites of mine. These are books that I love to return to, though, in the winter or over Christmas, and I thought I'd share them with you. So this one is The Baker's Daughter by D.E. Stevenson. If you're in the mood for a bit of cozy romance over the festive season, then this is such a good choice. I love D.E. Stevenson's books. So many of them are written in the interwar period, and that's a period that I'm especially interested in. I love Miss Bunkle's book, which we read together for the Comfort Book Club a couple of years ago, I think now. And this is another firm favourite of mine. A lot of it is set over the winter time. It's also set in Scotland, and it's just a very gentle but sweet romance. There's an especially lovely New Year's Eve party or hogmanay scene in this book too, which I really love. It's one that I'll pick up on New Year's Eve and just read that chapter of the book, because it always makes me feel very celebratory, and I just love the description in it. There's amazing food, there's friendship. It's just a really, really lovely little scene. So if you've never read this D.E. Stevenson, then now is definitely a good time to pick it up. And then speaking of cozy romances, this is actually something I'm reading right now. I'm about halfway through, and it's a reread for me. It's Clothes Pegs by Susan Scarlett. Susan Scarlett is better known as Noel Stratfield. I absolutely adored her children's books like Ballet Shoes when I was young, and I have a soft spot for her adult romances that she wrote under the pseudonym of Susan Scarlett. Clothes Pegs starts in the winter time. It actually starts just a few weeks before Christmas, and there's carols singing and just a lovely kind of cozy atmosphere at the start of this book, which I love. It's not too Christmassy. You don't get descriptions of the festivities, but there's just this feeling of happiness, and there's a lovely kind of family at the center of this book, who I love to read about. They're very close-knit and lovely, and it's got just a real wintry beginning to it, though then it does go through to other seasons. But I'm really enjoying picking this up and just reading it right before I go to sleep. It's the type of book that I find very soothing. It helps me to unwind last thing at night. It's just a very cozy, light kind of romance. So if you're in the mood for something like that too, then I definitely recommend this one. And it just has that little bit of festivity to it, which is quite nice for November, I think, as well, because it just gets you anticipating December all the more. So I'm really enjoying that right now. Then a lovely classic to read at this time of year, this is one I'd like to reread this year, is Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy. This is a lovely seasonal read because it goes all through the different seasons, but it starts at Christmas time. And it's just a really charming, beautiful book. Not too long either, so it's just the right kind of classic to pick up at this time of year when we all get so busy. But I love Thomas Hardy's writing. It's always so beautiful. And if you've never read this one, then this is definitely the time of year to get it. And then what is actually our comfort book club choice for January is Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce. I love this edition. I got quite a few years ago, I think now. It's extra Christmassy, and I think there's a recipe for Christmas pudding at the back of this book too. But Dear Mrs. Bird is the first in the Emmy Lake series by A.J. Pierce. It's now a trilogy, and it's a really charming book. Even though it's set in the midst of World War II, it still manages to have a cozy feeling to it, which I absolutely love. There is tragedy, there are sad and difficult times that happen in this book, and the heroine, Emmy, goes through a lot in this one as well. But I just love her character because she always tries to stay cheerful and positive, and I find her really inspiring. And in the end, there's a story of an amazing female friendship that's at the heart of this book too. And I really love that. So it starts just before Christmas, I think, and then it goes into January, and it's a very wintry read. It's a good sort of seasonal pick for this time of year, and I love this edition with the Christmassy cover as well. So I'm looking forward to returning to this one in January for the Comfort Book Club, and hopefully you'll read along with us as well. And then, of course, the Comfort Book Club choice for December is Little Women. And I do love to return to this book at Christmas time. The opening pages, I don't know, I think for me, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without reading at least that section of Little Women in December. It's just such a classic. I also love to watch the film at this time of year. It really gets me in that cozy, Christmassy mood. So I'm excited to return to this for the Comfort Book Club in December. And then a book that I returned to last year and enjoyed so much again was The Willows in Winter by William Horwood. He also wrote The Willows at Christmas, which is absolutely charming too, by the way. So these are both lovely. This one is a real wintry read rather than Christmassy read, but The Willows at Christmas, if you want more of a festive pick, is also a great one to read. And these are lovely follow-on stories from The Wind in the Willows. So The Willows at Christmas and The Willows in Winter are just perfect if you want to return to that cozy world of The Wind in the Willows. Then these are definitely good ones to choose. I have to show you the end papers as well for this because I think that's just stunning. I love the wintry scene. So yes, two really lovely cozy reads for this time of year. Then a great non-fiction book for November is London Fog, the biography, and it's by Christine L. Courton. I got this ages ago and I really enjoyed it at the time, but I don't remember that much about it anymore, and I'd actually really like to read this again. It would be a great one if I can manage to get to it in November. I will try to, because this is definitely the month of fog and mist and drizzle, and this is such a fascinating book. I have to read you some of the chapter headings because I think they're just great. So it's The Birth of London Fog, Dickensian Gloom, King Fog, Women in Danger, The View from Abroad, London Apocalypse, Land of the Living Dead, and The Last Gasp. So this is a fascinating book about fog. First of all, how London, particularly in Victorian times, became so fog bound during the winter, some of the history of why that happened. But it also looks at fog depicted in novels as well as in artwork, which I find really interesting. And I think there is a focus in it on Victorian literature in particular. Like Dickens, you think of his descriptions of foggy London in Bleak House, for instance, or novels like The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, that also features a very foggy London, I think towards the end of the book in particular. The short stories of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, all of the fog in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I mean, all of those classics that I love and that feature all of this fog and how that was so much a part of London life. So this book looks into that as well as artwork. And yes, I really would like to return to it because I just don't remember it very well. So I think this would be a great read. Then, of course, I think what's become a real modern classic that so many people now enjoy returning to this time of year is Wintering by Catherine May. This was our Comfort Book Club choice last November. I read it when it very first came out and I interviewed Catherine May about the book. I'll link to that interview so you can listen to it if you're interested. But this is really a book about how to make the most of winter and how this season, which many of us can find very difficult to get through, can sometimes be a blessing, and how even periods of your own wintering in terms of going through a difficult time in your life can ultimately make you stronger. And it's just a really gorgeously written and very thought-provoking read. So it's one that I've enjoyed reading at least, I think, 2 or 3 times now, and it's a great one to return to at this time of year. And then a book that makes really interesting reading this time of year and that I found so beautifully written is The Light in the Dark, A Winter Journal by Horatio Clare. This is a really good read, I think, if especially you suffer from seasonal affective disorder, which Horatio Clare, I think, definitely does. And he writes so openly and honestly in this book about how he has really struggled to come to terms with the winter time, about the depression that affects him so often at this time of year. But the kind of lightness he has still managed to find in this season too, it's really inspiring. I myself don't suffer from SAD, but I think anyone who does would find this such a moving read. And even though I don't suffer from it, I still really enjoyed this book, and we can all struggle with the darker months. So this was just a really beautiful book, and it says, in this moving and lyrical evocation of a British winter and the feelings it inspires, Horatio Clare raises a torch against the darkness, illuminating the blackest corners of the season and delving into memory and myth to explore the powerful hold that winter has on us. By learning to see, we can find the magic, the light that burns bright at the heart of winter. Spring will come again. And I remember too, there was a really lovely description of Christmas in this book too. But I think The Light in the Dark and Wintering are really good books to read together in a way, especially if you suffer this time of year and don't really enjoy winter. I think both of these books can give you a different perspective on the season that may help. So definitely 2 I would recommend. Then a book that I pick up every November and have done for years now is Nigel Slater's The Christmas Chronicles. Nigel Slater's kind of the opposite of Horatio Clare because he adores winter and the colder months. He in fact tries to extend winter by traveling to cold, snowy places, often at March or that time of year when spring starts to happen. He, in fact, wants to hold on to winter. So it's quite interesting to read these 2 writers together because they both write so lyrically and so beautifully, but Nigel Slater truly celebrates winter. He loves it. And I love his writing so much. I mean, reading this book actually helped me to enjoy the months of November and January in particular a lot more, because December I think is easy to like, but some of those other winter months are harder. But he writes just so beautifully. I mean, the opening chapters in this book, he writes about things like a walk through the snow, the winter light, stars and shadows, getting to grips with the season, the landscape, being out in the cold, coming in from the cold, eating winter, the food of fairy tales, the coldest winters, drinking winter, raising a glass, a toast to the winter solstice, fire, the scent of winter. He really is a writer that writes about all of his senses. And it's just beautiful how he manages to draw such inspiration from this cold, dark season. And I think he can inspire so many of us to get even more from winter ourselves. So there are those lovely kind of introductory chapters to the book, and then it truly starts on the 1st of November. And it's a lovely book to pick up all through the winter and read throughout the few sort of weeks and months ahead. And I love to just dip in and out of it. It never fails to boost my mood a little bit when I need it. And it's a book to read absolutely as much as it is to cook from. In fact, I know a lot of people haven't cooked from it. They've just enjoyed reading it. I have cooked from it, as well as obviously loving to read it. And I'd always like Nigel Sater's recipes too. So I think it's great for both. But yeah, a real classic, a real favourite this time of year. And then, I always love a bit of poetry too. So this anthology, A Nature Poem for Every Winter Evening, edited by Jane McMullen Hunter, is a firm favourite of mine, a wonderful book to have on your bedside table at this time of year. Then a few real sort of Christmassy classics for me. The 13 Days of Christmas by Jenny Overton. This is a favourite from my childhood. It's so funny. It's also illustrated by Shirley Hughes. There are some really lovely illustrations of hers all through the book. It's based on the famous Christmas Carol. It says, Annabel Kitson dreams of romance and being swept off her feet, so her family hatched an elaborate plan to help her sweetheart, Frances Vere, win her hand in marriage. When Frances arrives on Christmas Day with a partridge in a pear tree, Annabel is delighted, but that is only the first day of Christmas. As the house fills up with an endless stream of turtle doves, French hens, dairymaids, and more, will Annabel be charmed or alarmed at the chaos of it all? And will the 13th day of Christmas bring the wedding that everyone is hoping for? This is just such a sweet, charming, and hilarious read that I really recommend it. It's a true Christmas classic for me. And then another book that always has me laughing out loud is Rumple at Christmas by John Mortimer. I actually love to listen to this one too. I'll put a link to the Audible down below. If you're in the mood for some festive listening, then Rumple is a real classic for me. I also adore the Just Williams stories by Richmal Crompton, and they're read by Martin Jarvis. Every Christmas I listen to Just William at Christmas, and it always makes me laugh. I love it. So I'll link to that too. And then I also always listen to The Blue Carbuncle, which is one of my favourite Sherlock Holmes stories. I love the BBC dramatisation of that. So I'll link to that. And my other Christmas listen is A Christmas Tragedy, which is a Miss Marple short story, and I love it, read by Joan Hickson. I'll put a link if I can find that one as well. Yes, those are just some of my favourite Christmas listens, but Rumpole is definitely up there with them as well. And then another real Christmas classic for me is The Box of Delights by John Masefield. I wish there was a good audiobook of this. I tried to find one and I couldn't because I wanted to use this for the Comfort Book Club, and it really shocked me that there wasn't an audiobook of it available. I'll look again in case I'm getting something wrong, but at least in the UK I couldn't find one, and that was really disappointing. I would love to be able to listen to this. I reread this book quite often at Christmas, and I really want to be able to listen to it, so I hope that that's sorted out. We get an audiobook of it sometime soon. This is such a Christmas classic. It's a delightful story. It's the perfect book to read when it's just snowy and cold and Christmassy. Oh, it's just perfect. So yeah, a real favourite of mine. And then I do love to read a couple of Elizabeth Goudge little stories, Sister of the Angels and I Saw Three Ships. These are two children's books that are real Christmas stories, and they're just lovely, cozy reads for me. This is quite fun to read alongside the 13 Days of Christmas, because it's another one that's based on A Christmas Carol of I Saw Three Ships. So it's a really charming one. And then Sister of the Angels is one of the Henrietta books. I love A City of Bells, and this is a lovely follow-up read from that. So another huge favourite of mine is Christmas at Nettleford by Malcolm Saville. A real vintage children's classic for me. I love his Nettleford books. There are 4 in the series, but you can read them out of order. I don't think it matters if you haven't read the other ones. If you can find a copy of this one, it's just one of my favourite Christmas books to pick up at this time of year. It's a really charming story, all about all the sorts of things you enjoy at Christmas time. So I love this one. And then a real Christmas classic is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I also really love The Chimes by him, which is actually set on New Year's Eve. So it's quite a good choice perhaps to read in the time between Christmas and New Year's Eve. My mum loves The Cricket on the Hearth as well. Lots of good Christmassy tales from Charles Dickens. So if you've never actually read A Christmas Carol, I have to say it really is worth reading. It's a wonderful book and I so recommend it. And then just to end on a real high note, with Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher, a book I reread every December now. It's just become part of my own Christmas tradition, and my mum's as well. She adores this book too. And yes, I think Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without Rosamund Pilcher's Winter Solstice as well. It's just one of my favourite books of the season. So one I'll definitely be returning to this year. If you've never read it, then definitely do. I think it's a lovely story. So those are all of my recommendations and the books that I'm looking forward to reading myself over the next few months. Do let me know if any of these are favourites of yours as well, or if there are any books that you reread every winter. I'd love to know which ones you go back to over and over again. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Extra big thanks to those of you who pressed the super thanks button on my last video. I so appreciate your support. But thank you to everyone who comments and likes and watches my videos. I so appreciate it. And I hope you've had some good bookish inspiration from this one. I'll see you again next week with my Christmas book gift guide. So look out for that. Lots more bookish recommendations coming in that one.